Let's talk about scales. Let's ask the question, do we actually need them? Are they really that much of a fundamental aspect of music, of being a bass player? Well, if you were watching this video hoping for me to say, well, actually, yeah, you really just don't need them, they're irrelevant, hate to burst your bubble there, because they kind of are. Maybe not in the way everyone tells you they are, but I think underneath it all, they really are one of the most important things, one of the most important vehicles, building blocks, elements of music that we have that make us better musicians. And I want to share with you how I've been using scales and all of these fundamental building blocks of music for over 30 years, how they've helped me get where I am today as a musician, and ultimately how they give me this supreme amount of confidence every time I step onto the bandstand or walk into the studio, and they allow me to play music rather than think about music. The book I'm probably most well known for using, I've talked about this for many years, is The Hanon Virtuoso Pianist. That is one of many books that I've studied in this world of chord studies and scales and arpeggios. There's one by Phil Wilson and Joe Viola, Chord Studies for the Trombone. Yes, chord studies for the trombone that basically plays one note at a time. Incredible book of exercises. When I was trying to learn to play the trumpet for many years, this is sort of the trumpeter's Bible, the Arban. It's just so full of everything you need to know, and it's very trumpet specific. I took a great amount of knowledge out of that over the years. There's the Associated Board of the Royal Schools of Music, Manual of Scales, Arpeggios, and Broken Chords, yet another sort of classical manual full of everything in all keys and quite specific to the piano, this one. And what I've been working on for the past year, possibly the biggest project I've ever attempted, is to make one of these manual style books specifically for our instrument, for the bass. It's something that's been a huge labor of love and something I hope will become a part of your toolbox. It'll be the reference manual that when you go, oh yeah, what is D flat melodic minor? What is A flat altered, for instance? That's the book you're going to be able to go to. You're going to be able to find that scale. You're going to be able to find it with standard notation, with tab, with fingering. Something I'm doing for the very first time is putting fingerings on everything. It has all these things in it. It's hundreds of pages long. It is kind of like the Arban. This is going to be the bass player's Arban. I don't know who Mr. or Mrs. Arban is. Mine will be the Guizdala. We're still working on the name. Is it going to be the bassist's book of scales and arpeggios, or could it be the bassist's book of scales, arpeggios, and broken chords? My wife says no broken chords. I say broken chords. Broken chords are not chords that need fixing. They are chords that are broken up into cells. They're incredibly useful. If you walk through the halls of a classical conservatoire anywhere in the world, you'll hear classical musicians practicing and breaking up chords across their instrument in little 4-note cells like that. I really love it as a practice tool. It's something I've used my entire musical life. Do we include it in the title of the book? Get in the comments below. Let me know. Do you want me to keep it simple? The bassist's book of scales and arpeggios? Or shall we add the bassist's book of scales, arpeggios, and broken chords? Let me know in the comments below. Before we get to this first exercise of how to play a major scale in multiple fingering, something I think is super important, I have to announce the pre-sale. This book is coming out November 27th, 2024, and there's the option to be a part of the pre-sale right now where we bundle a signed physical copy of the book plus the digital book. That's the bundle. It's available for pre-sale starting today. It's linked in the description of the video, and this special pricing for the pre-sale is at a discount for anyone who wants to be involved. And it's monstrous. It's one of, like I said, one of the most epic projects I've ever taken on, and it's taken about a year to put together just to get the details right. One of those details, which I hope everyone watching, if you can play a major scale, you can take use of this detail, this exercise right away. You have a 4-string bass. I'm sure you're well aware of that fingering. It's probably the most basic fingering of playing a 1-octave major scale. We're starting in C major on the 8th fret of our E string, and it's 2-4, 1-2-4, 1-3-4. Those are the fingerings. And exactly the same when you come down, 4-3-1, 4-2-1, 4-2. Now, what I think is really important for us bass players is to get as many fingerings under our fretting hand as possible. So instead of starting on our second finger, let's start on our first finger. And there are even two versions of this position. I'll start out with 1, 3, 4. So we play 3 notes on the E string. And I'm fingering it with 1, 3, 4. And then again, 1, 3, 4 on the next string. And then 1, 2 at the top. Now, you can also give your second finger a little bit of a stretch, stay in the same position, and swap the third finger and the second finger. So we go 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2. So just by making one position shift, you've already got 3 options of fingering a 1 octave major scale. Of course, the book does everything basically in 2 octaves and in all 12 keys. So once you get to position shifts, then this whole other world of, hey, which fingering do I use, opens up. And being able to shift that fluidly at any point on the instrument, that's something that I was very fortunate to be told early on was really important. Hey, get it together, make sure you can play every single scale from every single finger on your fretting hand. We've done first finger, we've done second finger, we can absolutely do third finger, although on paper, not so common. And it is a little stretchy, also from the fourth finger. That involves a position shift when playing 1 octave. Or again, a variant of that without the position shift, just a quick stretch with the fourth finger. So 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, stretch the fourth and go up to the top string for the 1. Now, why are multiple fingerings for a single scale important? In fact, why are scales important at all? Why do we need to know what they are? Why should we practice them? What do they even mean if we kind of know the songs we know and that's what we enjoy doing? Well, obviously, you have to ask yourself, what do you want out of the music? How far do you want to take it? Do you want to improve your fundamental technique as far as possible? Then scales can be a great place to find discipline. They can be a great thing to populate your practice routine. And when you get into the nerdy end of the book, once we get past major and harmonic minor, melodic minor, some of the more common, more popular scales that you may have heard of before, augmented, diminished, half diminished, maybe even getting a little in the exotic department like altered or Lydian dominant perhaps. Then once you get into the crazy exotic stuff like the Hungarian minor and the Hungarian major, the Ukrainian Dorian, like names that you're like, hey, is that, yeah, that is a real thing. Absolutely. Those 3 scales are a real thing. Here's the Ukrainian Dorian, by the way. It's a Dorian scale with a sharp 4. It's just this tiny flavor, this tiny change to a scale you've probably heard tons and tons and tons of in your life, the Dorian scale. That's C Dorian right there. Now you just raise the 4th and you've opened yourself up to a new sound, and you've opened yourself up to another set of shapes that are going to discipline both your fretting hand and your picking hand to improve your technique. So I'm not sitting here saying, hey, you there, you bass player, wherever you are in the world, you have to know what Ukrainian Dorian is, otherwise you're not a musician. Absolutely not. It's just yet another flavor that perhaps you haven't heard, and yet another thing to hopefully inspire your curiosity. And regardless of anything, it's going to give you another challenge because hopefully it's something you haven't heard of and haven't played before. So to me, anything that gets my fingers moving in sort of an unfamiliar area is something that's doing me a lot of good in terms of improving my motor skills as a musician, as a bass player. And who knows, maybe the Hungarian major is the scale you've been waiting your entire life to find, and you just fall in love with that sound and write tons of music with it. Again, that's not the goal of any of this. The goal of the book, of the new book, the Bassist Book of Scales and Arpeggios, possibly and of broken chords, is to be a reference, is to be the go-to manual for us bass players, where you can go to find out, exactly what E melodic minor is, or kind of E flat Lydian or something like that. Or it's the place you can kind of go in the back end of the book and get a little lost, musically speaking, and kind of immerse yourself in weird and wonderful sounds. But either way, it's going to help you populate your practice routine. I really hope it inspires you as much as it does me. Doing the research for this book was one of the most fun things I've done in music in many, many years. And it also reminded me how important just what we were talking about with the major scale was, with those multiple fingerings, with being disciplined to get those in your fretting hand especially. Because when those things are so inside your playing that it's not like you remember them, it's that you cannot possibly forget them. And with that comes the element that I think is most important, is that you never have to think about them ever again. And you can start to associate the sound of those scales with the music you're playing. If you work on them enough, if you get those individual sounds into your playing, when you bring together the harmony and the melody, the vertical music and the linear music, when those two things come together, I think these are the tools that make that kind of marriage, make that union of those two elements of music a really, really happy place to exist as a musician. So yeah, I think scales are super important. That is not because I've just written a massive book of scales. That is because everything that is in this massive book of scales is what I've used to get where I am for the past 30 years. Again, I'm not the person who says you must know what Dorian is and Phrygian is and Ukrainian Dorian or any of these things. I'm not the person who says you must know theory. You have to be thinking about theory on gigs. Absolutely not. But these are the tools that get that stuff so inside your playing that you never, ever have to think about it again. And to me, that's always been the goal. To be able to have fun, to have an amazing amount of confidence, no matter what the musical situation is, and for my ears to really always be in tune and switched on. These are the things I've used for 30 years. They used to be mine sitting here in many scrapbooks all over the place, and now they're all being published for you to use as yours. Again, the links for the pre-sale are below in the description of the video. Let me know about that title, Bassist's Book of Scales and Arpeggios, or Bassist's Book of Scales, Arpeggios, and Broken Chords in the comments below. That's really important. We're about to finish the cover and send it off to be printed. So get in there as soon as possible. Let me know what you think. Get involved in the pre-sale. Like I said, that price only lasts until the night before the book launches. The book launches November 27th. That's Thanksgiving Eve here in the US 2024. Appreciate you spending some of your insanely precious time talking about the bass, learning about music, nerding out over some scales. I'll see you guys soon.